Hello everyone and welcome to my first Necromancer build. It is literally the first day of the PTS and I am sharing with you guys the build that I put together that I will definitely be running on the live server. This is a Bow 2H burst stamina Necromancer. It is very fast, very kitey. It does a lot of damage and yeah, it is a lot of fun to play. So the Necromancer actually does a build like this very well. It's got a lot of really good burst skills and it's got a purge which synergizes really well with mist form, especially for that kite style gameplay. And not only does this build hit like a truck, but it has got a ton of sustain as well, so it can fight forever too. So yeah, this is also a PTS build, so keep that in mind, guys. I had to go out looking for fights today. It's the first day of the PTS, so I did find quite a few fights, but most of the fighting that we're going to show on this build is dueling, and just because that's all we could really find. Now, this is not really a dueling build. It's definitely meant for the world PvP that you see in the intro clip here where we got that kitey playstyle, but duels were really the only fights that I could find. So I hope that you guys enjoy this build. If you do, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content and I'm going to be doing a lot more Necromancer. I'm looking at Magicka Necromancer tomorrow, so it should be fun, guys. I really hope that you all enjoy this build and let's get right into it. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the build. So to begin, we are a Wood Elf on this build. This is a speedy, high burst build, and Wood Elf in PvP is just the best race for that kind of spec. They get the speed, the penetration, the regen, the max stam, all super fantastic for a speed burst build in medium armor in PvP. Now, taking a look at the max stat of this build, they're not too crazy for sure. We do have 25.5k health, 10k magicka, and just shy of 28k stamina. I really like the high HP on this build. It's Necromancer gets a base 2k HP, and just having a bigger HP pool makes you harder to burst down. So this is actually the lowest HP that we can run on this spec because we have full max stam and chance. Now, the max stam is a 28k pool, which is not super huge, but it is indicative of a high crit, high burst build with high weapon damage and regen as well. We've got a lot of sustain on this build. This recovery is not reflective of how much sustain we actually have. The sustain on this build is really good. And then the magicka coming in at 10k is more than enough. The only magicka skill that we use is the armor buff and mist form on this spec, so we don't need mag for anything else. Now, taking a look at the recoveries, the Necromancer gets a passive so that if they have a pet summoned, they get 300 additional magicka and stamina recovery. So I'm going to summon the pet and I'm going to drink my potion for the buff as well. 1,463 magicka recovery, 780 health, and 2,300 stamina recovery. Absolutely awesome sustain on the Necromancer. Yeah, it's really good, and honestly, Necro just gets huge base sustain from that passive alone. Now, we've got so much magicka recovery because we have to use mist form, of course. We actually don't use a potion that gives us magicka back, but we have more than enough mag sustain for mist form on this build. The health recovery, of course, is nice for PvP combat, especially in mist form. Having some health recovery is the only healing source that you can take while mist is active, so a really big deal there. And then this stamina recovery, absolutely fantastic, coming in at 2,300. Lots to work with there. Now, our weapon damage on this build when we buff up is sitting at 4,141, and then of course with our bow enchant we go up to 4,800 weapon damage on this build, and our crit chance is 55.5% and 60% on the bow bar. So we have a nice high crit rate, we have a pretty decent amount of weapon damage, and this build we're also sporting all of the damage buffs that we need, minor force, minor berserk, so we do a lot of damage on this spec. Now, the resistances on the Necromancer, we are playing a fairly squishy mobile Necromancer build, so 20k spell, 20k physical resistance, and 2,400 crit resist. Just enough so that we don't get spiked down, but for the most part, you don't need huge resists. We've got a strong purge, we've got a strong heal, and we're very fast and mobile, so yeah, just playing into that medium armor playstyle, we don't need the huge resists. Now, for the Mundus on this build, I have this Steed Mundus with movement speed and health recovery. In the footage on this build, I actually didn't have a Mundus Stone. I forgot to get it and just couldn't be bothered once I realized. So I grabbed it after for the build video. The Steed, I think, is the best Mundus for that speed, and the health recovery, yet again, really good if you have Mist Form on a build. Now, you could always go with the Warrior here if you wanted additional damage and healing, or even the Lover Mundus if you just want to push the damage as far as you can on this spec. Now, we are a stage 4 vampire. We're using Mist Form on this build to stay mobile, and it's a great damage cloak for how squishy we are. So I would definitely say you have to be a vampire for this particular spec. You could play something similar as not a vampire, but I think that Necromancer, because they have a Purge, is really good with Mist Form. Mist Form synergizes really well with the Purge, so yeah, I really like Vampirism on this. And then the Bear Haunch is our food. It gives us max health, health recovery, stamina, and magicka recovery. All the sustains very important. And then the max health, also great for the build. And it allows us to have a pretty chunky health pool for how squishy and damage focused we are on this spec. And then, of course, the potion that I'm using on this build is the Essence of Weapon Crit. Now, it's going to give us that Weapon Crit buff that we're missing, as well as give us both the Major Fortitude and Major Endurance buffs. We have more than enough mag sustain, but the bonus health and stamina sustain is fantastic for the build, not to mention the heal and the initial stamina return as well. Now, taking a look at the sets we're running on this build, the sets you guys have seen in a build before from me, and I went for these same sets as before simply because it is a really great set combination for the style of build that I like to play Bow 2H. So to start off, we've got Slime Craw, my favorite burst set in the game. It gives Minor Berserk to us. Necro does not get Minor Berserk, so this is going to allow us to have even more damage. And then, of course, we get that Weapon Crit as well, which is great for a burst build too. The next set that we have is the Griffin set. Yet again, my favorite medium armor set in the game. Weapon Crit, Weapon Damage. When we deal direct damage, we gain Minor Force and Minor Expedition for 3 seconds. 10% crit damage, 10% movement speed, starting to stack with our other sources of movement speed, 10% from Wood Elf, the Steed, and this set, plus the Major Expedition. We have 60% bonus movement speed in Mist Form, and we can easily approach speed cap while sprinting. So we stay very, very mobile thanks to a set like this, as well as giving us that crit damage bonus, very important too. And then on our Greatsword bar and our jewelry, we have got the Hunding's Rage set with full infused jewelry weapon damage. Absolutely fantastic for the Necromancer. I picked Hunding's Rage because the Necro benefits a lot from a critically focused build thanks to its passives. And on top of it, the Necro has access to both poison and disease damage attacks, so I felt that Hunding's Rage would be the best bet because it will increase the damage of everything, but still be weapon damage and critical focused. And then for the last set on the build, we have got the Black Rose Perfected Bow. Now, I don't have the Perfected Bow on the live server, but on the PTS, I get to have this for the bonus crit chance. However, it's still fantastic the way it is if you just take the normal bow. This is very easy to farm. I think that's definitely worth mentioning. This is a fairly easy bow to get, and it's infused with the increased weapon spell damage enchant to give us more of a damage buff when we open with our bow. Now, the Black Rose Bow itself is going to make our Magnum Shot deal half the initial damage as a poison damage tick every 2 seconds for 4 seconds. Really great skill. It's just going to add more pressure to our Magnum Shot, and this build has some serious synergy with the Magnum Shot crit rush, and it's thanks to the Necromancer skill kit, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, the traits on our Greatsword are, of course, Nirnhoned with the poison damage enchant. I think this is the best way to go. We, of course, are using Onslaught for the burst alt on the Greatsword, so Nirnhoned is fantastic for that, and it's great for damage and outgoing healing. I went with the poison damage enchant because I wanted to apply more of the poison dot, but you can go with poison or disease here. This build already has Major Defile, so disease isn't the biggest deal to go for, but it just makes sure that you can apply more debuffs to your opponents. So it's really up to the user if you want the dot or the defile. And then the jewelry are full infused with the weapon damage enchants. I think this is definitely the best way to go for medium armor. If you guys want to play a build like this, but you want to do it on no CP or something like that, I would recommend going for Robust here so you have a little bit more max stam to work with. It's definitely going to help out because you'll have a much lower pool on a no CP environment. But on the CP campaign, we can get away with going with the Infused for pushing that maximum weapon damage and just getting the best damage and healing that we can at the expense of having a little bit less max stat. And then for the gear, we have got 4 pieces of Impenetrable and 3 pieces of Well Fitted. I think this is the ideal setup because we have so much sustain, so we added an extra impen and just went for the 3 Well Fitted. Impenetrable, of course, so important to reduce the critical damage we take in PvP, and Well Fitted is going to help keep us mobile, reduce cost of roll dodge and sprint, very important for a medium armor build too. And then the enchants on the gear are full maximum stamina, and this is perfect. We don't need to go try stats here. The Necromancer innately has a lot of health, to be honest, so yeah, we can definitely run full max stam, and it's totally fine. Now, taking a look at the abilities we've got on this build, guys, we're going to start off on our bow bar actually, which is kind of our kite bar and our combo set bar. But I wanted to start on the bow bar because, well, a lot of our necro skills are here, and I think it's important we start on this bar. So the first skill we have is the Skeletal Archer. This will unearth an archer from the dirt. It'll fight for 16 seconds, dealing 2,500 physical damage with each of its attacks. This can crit, and as the archer deals damage, it increases by 10% more damage per attack over time. Now, something I want to note is that this is the primary summon for this build, so this is what's going to make sure that you get that bonus to your sustain as often as possible, is keeping this archer up. So you want to make sure that your archer's alive at all times. And another thing that I want to note about the archer is that it cannot be targeted. An opponent can't attack your archer, so this is a guaranteed 16-second duration on your regen buff, so really, really good for that reason too. Now, of course, when we're on our front bar, this archer will also have a critical chance bonus if our opponent's health drops below 25%, thanks to our Death Knell passive here. So I think that's worth mentioning because it kind of works as a pseudo poison injection in kind of the same way. So not only is it a fantastic dot, but it will actually deal more damage as the opponent's health begins to drop too. Now, taking a look at the next skill, we have got Magnum Shot, and this is here as the primary stun for the build. Necromancer doesn't have a class stun outside of a Fear Totem, and that takes 2 seconds to wait before it activates. So this is going to be our single target stun and the combo setter for this build. This works really fantastic in tandem with Blast Bones on this spec. Blast Bones deals a lot of damage to your opponent when it explodes, and it takes 2.5 seconds to summon and then a time to run to your target. So if you go for the Blast Bones and then go for a Magnum Shot and then crit rush to your target, the Blast Bones will explode at around the time that your crit rush lands. So it just gives a really smooth combo. This is one of the best Magnum Rush combos that I have ever played. It does so much damage, and the Blast Bones being an undodgeable AoE is a massive deal as well. It essentially forces your opponent to take damage from this combo regardless of what they do to defend against it. So I really, really like this combination on the Necromancer. Of course, our Black Rose Bow will add a dot to the Magnum Shot as well, so it'll deal more damage over time too. Now, the next skill that we have is Elusive Mist, and this is a fantastic skill for any squishy build that needs a way to stay mobile as well as soaking up some damage at the same time. And a Mist works really well on the Necromancer because we have a Purge as well. So Mist Form, of course, is going to reduce the damage we take by 75%. It is access to Major Expedition. We also get the Major Expedition from our Bow Dodge roll. Necromancer does not get Major Expedition in its class kit, so we're just helping out with the Necromancer buff lack here. And then, of course, we're immune to snares and disabling effects while we're in Mist Form. A huge deal. We have 60% additional movement speed with all our buffs in Mist Form, so we can stay very mobile and be bulky, even though we're not on a tanky build for a short period of time. Now, the next skill that we have is Hexproof, and this is the Necromancer Purge. Now, this is going to cost 1,800 health and remove 4 negative effects from yourself, and while slotted, all the costs of your abilities are reduced by 3%. Now, I think the reduced cost is fairly significant because it does affect our Elusive Mist, and it does affect our most expensive ultimate, which is the Ravenous Goliath. In the footage, I was running this on the wrong bar, but I definitely did a double pass through these bars and made sure that I slotted things properly for you guys. Now, of course, this Purge is going to be really fantastic, but the fact that it costs health means that you have to use it in a different way than you would use for, say, a Templar Purge. You almost want to heal first before you use Hexproof. Now, Necromancer actually gets a bonus to the healing done if there's a negative effect on it. So if you have a negative effect on you and heal first, it's not even that bad on the Necromancer. In fact, the class kind of encourages you to heal first and purge later. So I think that it works because of this class. Now, something you have to be careful of, though, is that if your health drops too far, you won't be able to purge. And if you don't have a big heal up, well, you can be in huge trouble. So you have to be careful with how you use this Purge, but it is definitely a very, very powerful and effective ability for the Necro. Now, the next ability we have is the Summoner's Armor. Now, this is, of course, access to our physical and spell resistance buffs for 20 seconds. So we get those armor buffs, which are very important for PvP. And then while active, the cost of all of our skeletons are reduced by 12%. And this ability itself creates a corpse when the effect ends. Now, I picked this morph because we're definitely burst-oriented. The other morph of this armor pulls people to you when they hit you with a ranged attack. For this build, I don't think it's the best to run, but that other morph is actually really strong, and it can be incredibly trolley as well, so it's kind of up to you what you want to run here. If you have this armor buff up and you're in mist form, you can troll the snipers really hard, so it's up to you guys yet again, whether you want to have the cheaper cost or you want to have that trolley pull. The pull itself, I don't think will make it through to the live server the way it is now. And then for the ultimate, we have got the Ravenous Goliath. You turn into the Ravenous Bone Goliath. You gain 30,000 health, and you heal yourself immediately for the health that you gained. While transformed, your light attacks restore health, and your fully charged heavy attacks also restore even more health. And you deal a flat amount of damage based on your HP to enemies around you, and you heal yourself for the amount of damage done. Now, the value that I show here is half of what this tooltip will be because we, of course, will have double the health that we have now. So it's around 3k damage per second. Very, very strong ultimate. And while you're in the Goliath, that max HP pool can make it hard for people to burst you down. But something you have to keep in mind is that we're still fairly squishy on this build, so we have to be careful, even if we enter the Bone Goliath, how we're going to engage with stuff, and just make sure that we're getting an adequate amount of healing power from staying on top of our opponents. But I do really like this ultimate. I didn't use it a ton during my testing, but when I did use it, it was a lot of fun. And you got to use your full kit as you're a massive Bone Goliath, so that was really cool to do too. Now, taking a look at the front bar, guys, we have got a Greatsword Burst Kit, my favorite Greatsword Burst Kit to run, but with the Necromancer skills in it. So the first skill we have is Executioner. This is the primary execute for the build. You can take people down with it, of course. Nice hard-hitting skill, dealing exponentially more damage as your opponent's health drops. Critical Rush is the next skill we have, coming in at just shy of a 7k tooltip. It's going to deal a 40% additional damage based on the distance traveled to the target, and this is your primary gap closer and also your primary burst skill in conjunction with Blast Bones. Like I said, the Magnum Crit Rush combo on this build is very smooth and very effective, so yeah, this works really well on this spec. Now, the tooltip is a little bit lower than it would be on some other burst classes, but keep in mind that Necromancer actually gets a bonus to its physical penetration by 1500. So I think that's worth noting because that would mean that our tooltip would be more like 7.2, 7.3k if instead of penetration we got some more weapon damage. And then the next skill that we have is the Detonating Siphon. Violently drain the last spark of life from a corpse, dealing 2,700 damage over 12 seconds to all enemies around the corpse and between you and the corpse. And if it lasts its full duration, it explodes at the end for almost 9k disease damage. And while slotted, our damage done is increased by 3%. Really great skill for this build. It is such a deadly dot. We're going to put a lot of corpses on the ground, and this is how we're going to interact and consume our corpses, is with the Detonating Siphon. I didn't use it as much as I should have in the footage, and I apologize for that, guys. It was my first day on the Necromancer, so I'm still learning myself, but this ability is very strong, and the dot that it applies is absolutely deadly. 27k over 12 seconds. And of course, that passive damage increase is huge too. It's just going to increase the burst of this build, and this is, of course, a burst build, so really nice to get that as well. Now, the next ability we have is Rally. This is your primary and only heal on the build. After playing this build for some time, you don't need more than Rally. It's just like the Stamina Templar that I play. Purge is more than enough to keep you alive, and then you've got a strong Rally with a high crit rate to back you up when you need that big healing power, and of course a potion if you need that too. So really great heal for the build. This gives us Major Brutality as well. Necromancer does not get access to pretty much any buffs, so you gotta get them from your weapons. So we get the Major Brutality here, and it's a good heal over time too. It pairs really nicely with our health recovery, coming around 800, and then 1200 health every 2 seconds on this at a fairly high crit rate. So we've got some pretty nice health coming in over time. It fits really nice with the kite gameplay style. And then finally, guys, the last normal skill that we have is Blighted Blast Bones, and man, this ability, in my opinion, is kind of overpowered. It hits so hard. 17.3k tooltip on this. It's disease damage. It applies Major Defile for 4 seconds when it explodes. And the delay of this ability, I mean, it takes a bit of time to get there, but once this blows up and it goes with your full Magnum Crit Rush combo, I mean, you just destroy people with it on this spec. It hits so freaking hard, and if they survive it, they're major defiled, and you can just put another Blighted Blast Bones on them. Essentially, on this build, you just want to make sure to continually cycle your Blast Bones, and just make sure you always have one running out there and kamikazing into something. Such a powerful skill. Now, in my personal opinion, I think this will get nerfed before this hits the live server. I think that we'll see a change to the defile, or we'll see a damage reduction, or both. Long story short, it's too strong just from what I experienced with it. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions if you guys played with the Blast Bone skill. It is very, very, very good. And then finally, guys, for the ultimate on the Greatsword bar, we have got Onslaught. My favorite burst ultimate in the game. We've got a 20k tooltip on it. So Onslaught on the Necromancer is actually not the highest tooltip. It would be better on some other classes, but still, the fact that we got that armor-piercing ultimate and it returns its cost if we get the kill. Massive, massive deal. It gives us huge single target burst on top of our already huge single target burst on this build. If you go Blighted Blast Bones, Magnum Shot, Crit Rush, Onslaught, your opponent is going to get destroyed. They have to dodge that. They have to block that. That is going to hurt everything that it hits, even tanks. So that's what I'm getting at. This is a really great combination killer move with all the bursts that we have on this Necromancer. And of course, this ultimate will steal our opponent's physical spell resist, making us a little bit bulkier for 8 seconds. So it does add some defensive utility to this build as well. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the champion points that I'm running here. We've got 31 Warlord, 13 Sprinter, and 3 in Bashing Focus. A focus, of course, on Warlord because we got to break free. Sprint because, well, we're in a medium armor build. We're sprinting a lot. And then I had a couple points left over for Bashing Focus. Now, taking a look at the Lover Tree, we've got 49 Mooncalf, 49 Arcanist, and 37 in Healthy. A nice even spread here. Big focus on both Mooncalf and Arcanist because we have quite a bit of both recoveries. And then Healthy too because, well, we got to have that health recovery. Really good for Mistform. The important passive we get here is Wind Running, 2% additional movement speed, and increased health and magicka recovery while sprinting. Really fantastic for that medium armor build yet again. Taking a look at the Shadow Tree, we've got an even split 44-44 Tumbling Shadow Ward. You gotta roll dodge, you gotta block. We're in medium armor, so we're gonna be doing quite a bit of both. Really fantastic to have a lot of points in both of these for this kind of build. Now, I actually didn't put any points in Befoul, but you could definitely put a few points here because we do have the Major Defile. I just felt like this was a burst build, and most of the time when we get that clean kill, they're not struggling through a Defile to out-heal it. They're getting more like one shot from the burst. So from my point of view, I didn't think it would be super worthwhile, but if you guys want to put it on here, it does help, so it's totally up to the user. It'll help especially against tankier targets that have a high healing power and high durability. Now, taking a look at our blue tree, we got nothing in the Apprentice, 120 in the Atronach, a standard burst tree, 81 Master at Arms, 39 Physical Weapon Expert, greatly increasing the damage of our direct damage attacks, which is every single attack on this build outside of the huge dot that we have, and of course the Magnum Shot dot. All our other attacks are direct damage, so pretty much all of our attacks. And then for Physical Weapon Expert, we increase our light and heavy attacks with the bow and the Greatsword. Really fantastic yet again. The important passive we get here is the Roll Dodge to set an opponent off balance. That synergizes really, really well with the Exploiter passive in the next tree. Increase our damage against off-balance enemies by 10%. Really nice. We're going to burst people super hard on this spec. Now, taking a look at this tree here, we've got 49 Mighty, 50 Piercing, and 51 in Precise Strikes. I think this is the best way to go for a burst build. I didn't put anything in Thaum yet again because we only had the single dot that will be affected by it. The Magnum Shot actually won't be affected by Thaum, my bad. So I think that putting points here isn't really worthwhile because it's just a single dot. It is a very strong damage over time, but buffing up all these is going to buff up that dot as well and give us the damage in the burst department, which is where we really want it. Now, the other important passives besides Exploiter are going to be Perfect Strike. That increased critical chance is really nice. When our opponent is in execute range, we have got like 75% crit chance, so yeah, really great, really great. And then the last stand passive for that Major Heroism when we drop below 20% health. It's PvP. You're going to drop below 20% health at some time, and Major Heroism is going to proc for you, so really nice too. taking a look at the Steed tree, we've got 51 Ironclad, 60 Resistant, 40 Spell Shield, and 40 Medium Armor Focus. A nice bulky Steed tree. Of course, we reduce incoming direct damage, and we reduce incoming critical damage. A lot of Burst is classified as direct damage, and it's usually crits. And then the Spell Shield, Medium Armor Focus, just to bulk up both of our resists evenly here. And then in the Lady tree, I've got 32 Hardy, 32 Elemental Defender, and nothing in Thick Skinned. So Hardy Elemental to increase both our physical and our magical defenses by 1%. And then the Thick Skin I neglected entirely because we have such a good Purge. No point in putting points here if we have that Purge and we can actively get rid of those negative effects. And then I've got a whopping 15 in Quick Recovery, and that is the build, ladies and gentlemen. All right, guys, so let's start that PvP commentary. We're going to show off the burst of this build to begin. Just a little bit of a skirmish here. I jump on the first yellow, set my Blast Bone combo on the second yellow, go for the Greatsword ult into the Blast Bone, and then we set the Blast Bone combo on the last guy, the Magnum Shot into the Critical Rush, the Executioner, and the Skeleton doesn't even make it, just wanting to show off a little bit of the burst of this build, guys. So now we've got a lot of dual footage for you guys. So you get to see just the abilities we use 1v1. In this one, we're fighting another Stamina Necro, and as you can see, we both open with the Blast Bones. I actually stun his skeleton and kill it. The Blast Bone only has 10k HP, so if you can kill it at a distance, it won't hurt you, but if you blow it up on top of yourself, it will. There you see that awesome Blast Bones combo with the Magnum Shot, and Kals does a fantastic job dodging that attack. Really great. And then the counter Dawnbreaker. I go for the Magnum Shot stun, try to go for my Greatsword ult, and a fantastic read on Kal's part, dodging the Greatsword ult there, and I'm just going to reset my pets here and reset my Blast Bones down on him. Go for a little bit of pepper with the Greatsword there, try to get a great knockback with the bow, but Kal's doing such a good job defending himself, and we're just going to continue to rotate around here, trying to continue to spam the Blast Bones on him, just trying to get that damage, get a good stun there with the Blast Bones, and we're just going to continue to refresh it, and look at that spike. Oh my gosh. So a good fight there, but I gotta say, man, Blast Bones, pretty OP. So this next fight here, I actually fight against Dragon Rock, who's another good friend of mine, and he actually is running a Magicka Necromancer, and the Magicka Blast Bones do serious damage. So at the beginning of this fight, he's kiting at the top of the bridge there, and I'm just hitting his Blast Bones, trying to prevent them from hitting me, and I'm going to counter his Blast Bone burst with my Mist, but man, we take some serious damage from his build, and we're going to have to be really careful. Huge spike there. We've got the Elemental susceptibility on us. Massive Blast Bone spike as we come out of there from him as well, and we see his Blast Bone go up. I go for my Greatsword ult, and I try to roll away, but yet again, we cannot roll when that Blast Bone's going. We have to do our best to block or miss those attacks, so I'm low on resource, and before the fight, me and Dragon Rock both agreed that it would be a terrain fight, as I am playing a world build, so I go for a kite into the tower here, just to reset my buffs, reset my heals, and give myself a bit of respite. And Dragon Rock's Necromancer is very, very powerful. It's much stronger up front than my build is, so I have to use my speed and rotate around him. There we get a good combo with the Magnum Shot, setting down our skeleton on him as well. Go for the Executioner there, get a nice amount of damage, but he does a great job responding with his heals, going into more heals there and setting down an AoE. So I just kite through him into the top of the tower here. We're going to reset the buffs and then open up. He does a lot of damage. Oh my gosh, we're just trying our best to tank it out. And Dragon Rock goes for the stun there. We try to kite him around the corner. We get smacked by the Fire Staff knockback. I kite with the Mist back up the corner and just continue to use my speed against him here. Take a massive spike from the Blast Bones, and then into his ultimate. Oh, we fell for the trap. Fantastic fight to him, but you guys got to see a little bit of the defensive utility of this build, and yeah, I think we just stayed on top of too much undodgeable AoE there. So this next fight here is against another Stamina Necromancer, and this guy is very bulky, so you get to see how we're going to kind of work people down on this build and wait for our opportunity to spike. There we hit a great combo. That was the perfect combo there. Blast Bones, Magnum Shot, crit rush, and he didn't take a huge amount of damage. He rebuttals with his Dawnbreaker there, and we set another Blast Bones combo there with the Magnum Shot crit rush. Get a good spike into him, and his HP is fairly low, but so is ours, so I just go for a kite up the corner here. I did not agree to an LOS duel with this guy, so I'm gonna try to fight him up front as best I can, and we're just gonna have to hug Mist Form as our stamina bar is lower here, get a little bit of sustain back, reset our pets on him, and then we're going to just lead with a few bow heavy attacks into Mist Form to get a little bit of resource and use use our mist to just soak up the damage and soak up his blast bones as well, and continue to apply pressure here. Notice how I'm continuously reapplying the blast bone. We get a great block on his Dawnbreaker there, so a nice timing on that. And I actually have the other ult slotted here. I go for the ultimate. It deals okay damage with the blast bone. He's got the major vulnerability. However, we don't capitalize on the kill there. I actually thought I had the greatsword ult slotted. My bad, guys. Can you tell it's my first day on this build? It's everybody's first day, but we get a great Magnum Shot blast bone combo there into the crit rush executioner, and we bring that guy down with a nice spike. And finally, guys, I have got a one-on-one against Kai, and he is a fantastic Magicka Nightblade from the PCNA server. And this was actually my first duel on this build, so it was an interesting fight to fight against him because I am familiar with his spec, but he's not familiar with, of course, the Necromancer. I think this is one of his first fights too, so an interesting fight between us. I'm doing a great job doing exactly what I need to do to counter his stealth. I'm blocking when he goes into cloak, using my mist form, making it so he cannot stun me when he enters stealth, and there we just hold the block, prevent the stun. I go into my Bone Colossus to rampage on him here. Look at how much hit points we have, 62k HP. We get him with the Magnum Shot into the crit rush, and the AoE from the Bone Colossus actually works as a stealth detect. You saw it breaking his cloak there as he tried to cloak next to us, but he kites away. Great job, and we're just going to respond with our mist form and come out of mist form with the block. He goes for the fear. Fantastic counterplay. We roll right after the fear into the Magnum Shot, and we're just going to reset our heals here. I think we go for the expunge, remove the negative effects, go for another rally potion, and he goes for the fear yet again. We break the fear, counter with our own stun, and as he's coming, we're just going to make sure to keep our defense up. He attacks yet again from stealth. We set the blast bones on him there. Sorry, we set the archer pet on him there, and we cannot set the blast bone until we see him. We hit him with the stun there, set the archer yet again, and I still don't set the blast bones. I need to set that blast bones to get the combo on him that we need, and he's going to keep opening from stealth there with the ambush. We dodge his in cap, so good read on that one, and then I'm just going to go right into the mist form here as he goes for a resto heavy attack to get a bit of resource back, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a kite as we're taking quite a bit of pressure from him in the open field, and I come back around the side, and he's just waiting for us right back into stealth, and we hit him with the Magnum Shot as he goes for a bit of a resto heavy, and now he's going to open from stealth. I think we go for the mist form. He waits for us, does a good fake there, and then we go into the block again. He fears us. We block his in cap after breaking the fear. There's the greatsword ultimate into the executioner. He does a fantastic response there. I think going into his resto ult, massive heal there, and we're just going to continue to kite around as he's kind of put off our pressure there, and we have to wait for him to re-engage. So he's at a distance. He's just poking us. Here comes the fear. That's what I'm reading. I go for the mist form thinking he's going to fear, hit him with the Magnum Shot stun, and try to set the blast bones yet again. But the one thing I'm doing wrong in this fight, as you guys notice, is I'm not setting that blast bones. There we see I set the blast bones down, try to get him with the Magnum Shot, but while he's in stealth, he actually sits in stealth next to the blast bones till it explodes and it pulls him out, but he goes right back into cloak, and we're just going to reset our buffs and wait with our block here. He goes for the fear again. We go for the roll after the fear there, setting him off balance on the next attack, and he goes right back into his cloak. We hold the block, hit him with the Magnum Shot yet again, heal ourselves, go for the expunge, and right into the mist form to counter his cloak yet again. Now we set the blast bones first this time, crit rush into him. The blast bones explodes. We hit him with the greatsword ultimate, and we manage to bring him down. A fantastic fight for Kai, a fantastic fight to everybody. Thank you guys for dueling with me on the PTS. It is tough to find people to fight out there, so thank you guys for playing the builds and testing stuff out. It was a lot of fun. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We create regular ESO content, so stay tuned for some more of that. If you guys want to catch some live gameplay, you can catch it on Twitch. A link, of course, is in the description below. And finally, we are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can be better ping to ESO, and they're free to try for the first 14 days. No credit card to sign up. So if you guys want to give them a shot, go ahead and try them. So there we go, guys. That was my first Necromancer build. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked the build, and I hope you guys are looking forward to Magicka Necromancer in the near future. Have a great night, everyone.